ASMR Whispering Fairy. Tonight I'm going to talk about the 10 books that I have read so far this year, and also the one that I'm currently reading. So I have read 5 books in, physical format that I have at my house. I have also read 2 books from the library, and then I have read 3 books in digital format. So what I'm going to do is tap on and read the backs of the books that I have at home currently, and then I will look on the computer and I will describe the books that I have read from the library or in digital format. So the first book that I have is called Better Decisions and Fewer Regrets. It's probably going to be reversed in the video. This is 5 questions to help you determine your next move by Stanley. I'm going to hook this microphone up to my shirt and hope that you will be able to hear me. If I can get it hooked to my shirt. There we go. So this book I received in the mail, and it says, "Good questions lead to better decisions." It says your decisions determine the direction and quality of your life. Your decisions create the story of your life. And while nobody plans to complicate their life with bad decisions, far too many people don't plan not to. In Better Decisions, Fewer Regrets, pastor and author Stanley introduces 5 game-changing questions that equip you to make better financial, relational, and professional decisions. These questions are designed to serve as a decision-making filter that will set you up for success in every season of life for the rest of your life. So like I said, I received this book in the mail, and I read it. So that was one of the 10 so far. As an aside, I actually set out to read 36 books this year. I thought that was a good number, 3 books a month, and right now I'm at 10, possibly 11 by the end of this month, so I think I'm definitely going to hit that target. This is another book that I received in the mail called I Found Love, and I Am Second. True Stories of Discovering Love, Belonging, and Friendship by Doug Bender. Says this highly anticipated new book from I Am Second contains inspiring stories of people who searched everywhere for fulfillment and belonging, but found it only when they put God and His love first in their lives. God offers a relationship filled with purpose, acceptance, and peace, the only relationship where you can find unconditional love and unshakable, authentic identity. The stories included are people who discovered that with Jesus placed first in their lives, they became known, valued, and loved. Moving, compelling, and profoundly inspiring, their stories will reveal that you can only find true love, belonging, and meaningful friendship when you discover your true identity in radical love of God. I Am Second invites you to reshape and retell your story by discovering the perfect love of Jesus and embracing your authentic identity. So I read this book and the other book, and they're obviously religious books, and there were some things that I thought were really good in here and other things that I took issue with and did not necessarily subscribe to, so take that for what it's worth. Both were very good books, and if you kind of put them in the context of your life and what you're looking for, I think they're both positive, but like I said, there are certain things that I personally have a hard time dealing with. So this book is Natalie Mcneil. She Takes on the World. This I got. Ignore my one nail. It is snapped off and it's going to take some time to grow back. This is a book that I really liked. I can read the praise for it. I don't have a description for it right now. Who Says You Have to Bow Down to Others' Expectations? Natalie Mcneil inspires you to forge your own path as a woman entrepreneur. This book is about living the life you know you are meant to live. Natalie Mcneil dispels age-old myths about the corporate world and enlightens the reader with humor and warmth. There is a whole generation of women who will greatly benefit from her words. This is a must-read for generations of women tired of hearing you can't and you shouldn't. The Game Changer Natalie will help you pioneer new opportunities and create winning strategies in business and life. Stop listening to what other people are saying about how you should live your life and start reading Natalie Mcneil's new book, which will help you gain control over your future. In this uplifting chronicle of her experiences, coupled with timeless career advice, you will become smarter and more confident in your career. Natalie Mcneil was one of the very first entrepreneurial writers invited to blog on Forbes Woman, and for good reason. Her blog, like her book, is smart, upbeat, inspirational, and fully practical advice for women who want to own their dream careers. So, highly recommend that one. And then I read Girl Stop Apologizing by Rachel Hollis. Very similar concept to the last book. Rachel Hollis has seen it too often, women not living into their full potential. They feel a tugging on their hearts for something more, but they're afraid of embarrassment, of falling short of perfection, of not being enough. In Girl Stop Apologizing, #1 New York Times bestselling author and founder of a multi-million-dollar media company, Rachel Hollis sounds a wake-up call. She knows that many women have been taught to define themselves in light of other people, whether as wife, mother, daughter, or employee, instead of learning how to own who they are and what they want. With a challenge to women everywhere to stop talking themselves out of their dreams, Hollis identifies the excuses to let go of, the behaviors to adopt, and the skills to acquire on the path to growth, confidence, and believing in yourself. So again, another book on women empowerment, self-love, positive talk. So, the book I just finished, Michael Crichton's The Lost World, one of the classics. It is the sequel to Jurassic Park. I did read Jurassic Park last year and got back on the Michael Crichton train. So it is now 6 years since the secret disaster at Jurassic Park. 6 years since that extraordinary dream of science and imagination came to a crashing end. The dinosaurs destroyed the park, dismantled the island, indefinitely closed to the public. There are rumors that something has survived. And so I like on the books, it's actually on the front and the back cover. If I take it out of the jacket, you can see the island, and you can see the different dinosaurs. We have the Tyrannosaurus rex, the Myosaurus, the Pachycephalosaurus, the Brachiosaurus, also known as Compes in this book, the Apatosaurus, Stegosaurus, Triceratops, Parasaurolophus, Velociraptor, and Carnotaurus. And in the back, it's the same thing. Glad I didn't have to read any more of those dinosaurs. Although I imagine if I had a 5-year-old, they would be able to say them perfectly. I like how the books sound differently if you put their jackets on or if you take them off. You can tap on them. So now I am going to grab my computer and I am going to read the other books that I have read to you. So I started off with Hidden Valley Road, which was on, I want to say it was on Oprah's book list. And it's by Robert Kolker, called Hidden Valley Road, Inside the Mind of an American Family. The heartrending story of a mid-century American family with 12 children, 6 of them diagnosed with schizophrenia, that became science's great hope in the quest to understand the disease. Don and Mimi Galvin seemed to be living the American dream. After World War II, Don's work with the Air Force brought them to Colorado, where their 12 children perfectly spanned the baby boom. The oldest born in 1945, the youngest in 1965. In those years, there was an established script for a family like the Galvins: aspiration, hard work, upward mobility, domestic harmony, and they worked hard to play their parts. But behind the scenes was a different story. Psychological breakdown, sudden shocking violence, hidden abuse. By the mid-1970s, 6 of the 10 Galvin boys, one after another, were diagnosed as schizophrenic. How could all this happen to one family? What took place inside the house on Hidden Valley Road was so extraordinary that the Galvins became one of the first families to be studied by the National Institute of Mental Health. Their story offers a shadow history of the science of schizophrenia from the era of institutionalization, lobotomy, and the schizophrenic mother to the search for genetic markers for the disease, always amid profound disagreements about the nature of the illness itself. And unbeknownst to the Galvins, samples of their DNA informed decades of genetic research that continues today, offering paths to treatment, prediction, and even eradication of the disease for future generations. With clarity and compassion, best-selling and award-winning author Robert Kolker uncovers one family's unforgettable legacy of suffering, love, and hope. This was a fascinating book. And it's mind-blowing. It is somewhat difficult to read, both emotionally and because it's very heavy on the science, which I don't mind it being heavy on the science, but it's not as quick a read as I'm used to in some of the other books, so it took me a little bit longer to read it, but really, really fascinating. One of the families that was studied to try and treat schizophrenia, and honestly there are some very horrific treatments and I think some very unfair practices, specifically in the criminal justice system, but I definitely think it was a great read, and I'm happy that I did. The next book that I read was Bloodline by Jess, Laurie. This was a book that I had actually won off of Goodreads in one of their giveaways, and so I got it in the electronic format, and I liked it. Perfect town, perfect homes, perfect families. It's enough to drive some women mad. In a tale inspired by real events, pregnant journalist Joan Harkin is cautiously excited to follow her fiancé back to his Minnesota hometown. After spending childhood on the move and chasing the screams and swirls of news-rich city life, she's eager to settle down. Lilydale's motto, "Come home forever," couldn't be more inviting, and yet something is off in the picture. The friendliness borders on intrusive. Joan can't shake the feeling that every move she makes is being tracked. An archaic organization still seems to hold the town in thrall. She does the sinister secret of a little. So does the sinister secret of a little boy who vanished decades ago. And unless Joan is imagining things, a frighteningly familiar figure from her past is on watch in the shadows. Her fiancé tells her she's being paranoid. He might be right. Then again, she might have moved to the deadliest small town on earth. So, pretty good book. I mean, I don't have very much to say other than it definitely caught my attention and I read it very quickly. So, not as heavy on the, I mean, it's a fiction book and it's a mystery book and it's pretty interesting. It was a bit of a thrillerish, so sometimes I just wanted to get it done before I went to bed because it was not always easy to fall asleep to. The Splendid and the Vile, a saga of Churchill family and defiance during the Blitz. This book took me a very long time to read, for me, because it was very heavy on the history, and I am not a history buff. In fact, the history that I took in college was the history of medicine, so that was my writing requirement. So this took me a little bit longer. Again, it wasn't a bad book, it just took me, it was harder to kind of parse through. And this is by Erik Larson, who I absolutely love. He has written some amazing books, so if you have a chance to read some Erik Larson, I highly recommend it. This book is about World War II. On Winston Churchill's first day as Prime Minister, Adolf Hitler invaded Holland and Belgium. Poland and Czechoslovakia had already fallen, and the Dunkirk evacuation was just 2 weeks away. For the next 12 months, Hitler would wage a relentless bombing campaign, killing 45,000 Britons. It was up to Churchill to hold his country together and persuade President Franklin Roosevelt that Britain was a worthy ally and willing to fight to the end. In The Splendid and the Vile, Erik Larson shows how Churchill taught the British people the art of being fearless. It is a story of political brinkmanship, but it is also an intimate domestic drama set against the backdrop of Churchill's prime ministerial country home, Chequers. His wartime retreat Ditchley, where he and his entourage go when the moon is brightest and the bombing threat is highest, and of course 10 Downing Street in London. Drawing on diaries, original archival documents, and once secret intelligence reports, some released only recently, Larson provides a new lens on London's darkest year through the day-to-day experience of Churchill and his family. His wife Clementine, which I believe is pronounced Clementine, their youngest daughter Mary, who chafes against her parents' wartime protectiveness, their son Randolph, and his beautiful unhappy wife Pamela, Pamela's illicit lover, a dashing American emissary, and the advisors in Churchill's secret circle to whom he turns in the hardest moments. This was also a frustrating book to me in some aspects, to see how this very well-to-do family, while still in the midst of the bombing, would go out to parties and drinking large quantities of wine and kind of flaunting their wealth in some aspects during the middle of a war when some people had nothing. But again, I did not major in history. I did not take history willingly. It was not my strong suit. The next book I read was The Testaments, The Handmaid's Tale #2 by Margaret Atwood. Gave this book 5 stars, loved it. More than 15 years after the events of The Handmaid's Tale, the theocratic regime of the Republic of Gilead maintains its grip on power, but there are signs it is beginning to rot from within. At this critical moment, the lives of 3 radically different women converge, with potentially explosive results. 2 have grown up as part of the first generation to come of age in the new order. The testimonies of these 2 young women are joined by a third voice, a woman who wields power through the ruthless accumulation and deployment of secrets. As Atwood unfolds the testament, she opens up the innermost workings of Gilead, as each woman is forced to come to terms with who she is and how far she will go for what she believes. I 100% recommend The Handmaid's Tale and The Testaments by Margaret Atwood. And particularly The Testaments was written very well from multiple different points of views from the characters, and I loved it. I think I read it in maybe 3 days. It was so good. And then the last book that I read this year was The Chosen Ones by Veronica Roth. 15 15 years ago, 5 ordinary teenagers were singled out by a prophecy to take down an impossibly powerful entity, wreaking havoc across North America. He was known as the Dark One, and his weapon of choice, catastrophic events known as drains, leveled cities and claimed thousands of lives. Chosen ones, as the teens were known, gave everything they had to defeat him. After the Dark One fell, the world went back to normal for everyone but them. After all, what do you do when you're the most famous people on Earth? Your only education was in magical destruction, and your purpose in life is now fulfilled. Of the 5, Sloane has had the hardest time adjusting. Everyone else blames the PTSD and her huge attitude problem, but really she's hiding secrets from them. Secrets that keep her tied to the past and alienate her from the only 4 people in the world who understand her. On the 10th anniversary of the Dark One's defeat, something unthinkable happens. One of the Chosen One dies. When the others gather for the funeral, they discover the Dark One's ultimate goal was much bigger than they, the government, or even prophecy could have foretold. Bigger than the world itself. And this time, fighting back might take more than Sloane has to give. So this was published in 2020. I will be reading the second one. I really did enjoy the book. I did give it 4 stars. And then, the book that I am currently reading Scentsy by Madeline Miller. I got this from the Book of the Month subscription that I had a while back, and I never got a chance to read it. I can tell you this was going to take me a little bit longer to read than some of the other ones as well, because it is very heavy on Greek mythology. And while it is an extremely interesting book, it's very dense in storytelling, and it doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't flow as well, but it's not, it doesn't have cliffhangers or anything like that. In the house of Helios, god of the sun and mightiest of the Titans, a daughter is born. But Scentsy is a strange child, not obviously powerful like her father, nor viciously alluring like her mother. Turning to the world of mortals for companionship, she discovers that she does possess power, the power of witchcraft, which can transform rivals into monsters and menace the gods themselves. Threatened Zeus banished her to a deserted island where she hones her occult craft, tames wild beasts, and crosses paths with many of the most famous figures in all of mythology, including the Minotaur, Daedalus and his doomed son, Icarus, the murderous Medea, and of course, wily Odysseus. But there is danger too, for a woman who stands alone, and Scentsy unwittingly draws the wrath of both men and gods, ultimately finding herself pitted against one of the most terrifying and vengeful of the Olympians. To protect what she loves most, Scentsy must summon all her strength and choose once and for all whether she belongs with the god she is born from or the mortals she has come to love. With unforgettably vivid characters, mesmerizing language, and page-turning suspense, Scentsy is a triumph of storytelling, an intoxicating epic of family rivalry, palace intrigue, love, and loss, as well as a celebration of indomitable female strength in a man's world. So I know this was floating around for a couple years. When was it published? The author also wrote The Song of Achilles, published in 2018. So yeah, I've been sitting on this book for a while. It's time to read it. So, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you coming back. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening. As always, thanks for visiting Fairy Hollow. I'm the ASMR Whispering Fairy. Fly safe.